Welcome to this week's market drama. There was a couple items here to go through for last week. Even though the market was fairly flat, S&P was down negative 0.2%, essentially flat. Nasdaq was essentially flat. Oil was up 1.3%. So at the macro level, the situation in the Middle East is definitely something the market is paying close attention, and we've seen kind of an escalation of U.S. involvement via B-2 bombers trying to take out nuclear facilities in Iran. But aside from that, we also did have the Federal Reserve meeting, and now they didn't change interest rates for in this meeting, but there was a couple signals there that were important. One, they did keep two rate cuts in its forecast for the second half of this year, and they also, when you look at their economic projections, they lower their economic projections for growth. They increase their unemployment rate projections a little bit to 4.5, and then inflation, which they measure as core PCE, that did hike to 3.1% for this year, right? So essentially, they're looking at the picture slightly less as positive going forward, and for that reason, they also didn't change their stand on rate cuts happening, two rate cuts happening in the second half of this year. Outside of the Fed meeting, we also had retail sales numbers. Now, there was some noise there because auto sales essentially had a huge drop off in May versus April, but this has to do a lot with the surge in March of people buying cars ahead of the Trump's implementation of tariffs. Once you exclude automobiles and other volatile assets, it's called like the control group. We did see that in May, retail sales rose 0.4% versus the modest decline that we saw in April. So all in all, the picture on the economic side continues to be okay, right? It's not accelerating, but it's not decelerating enough to give concerns yet of potential recession. So the market is still very much focused then on the macro situation and the geopolitical situation in particular in the Middle East. And that's really what helped maybe the market from continuous trajectory upwards that we've seen the prior weeks. Next week, we have the PCE inflation data as well as consumer confidence survey. And obviously, we're going to be watching very carefully how the situation in the Middle East evolves. That is it for this week. Stay tuned for next week.